Welcome, everybody. This is Microsoft 365 and Power Platform community call. It is March 4th. It is already March, third month of the year, which is really, really cool. We're heading towards summer in the Northern Hemisphere, actually heading to more winter if you're in the Southern Hemisphere. But I don't think it gets that cold in some Southern Hemisphere, unless you're really in the South Pole. Interest. No, never mind. Let's actually move on forward on the topic. So today we do have 3 awesome demos. Before the demos, we actually go through the latest and updates on Microsoft 365 Power Platform, some of the news, and we will do a together mode picture as a group photo before we go to the demos, and then we have Mark Grindle talking about the latest features and updates on SharePoint Embedded. It's a title which is work in progress title. It will be revealed as the demo starts. Fabian is going to talk about advanced considerations for the M365 data with the Copilot agent plugins. So he talked about the Copilot data plugins last week. If you haven't seen that, there's a recording available already in YouTube, and we're going to continue on that journey. And then Paolo is going to start a long journey about the Copilot Camp. So we actually start walking through the Copilot Camp, which has been completely renewed pretty recently, and there's new tutorials, new guidance, all of that, and as it is getting refreshed, we want to actually do an update on the videos as well, and this is the first episode on that one as well. Now, I will try to be relatively quick on the intros, which will be difficult because I talk way too much, but I'll try to be fast enough so we have enough time for all of the demos today. Quick recap on of the assets and URLs, what is available for you to take advantage. YouTube channel, all of the recordings go there. LinkedIn page and group for discussions and following up on what's happening. A lot of open source assets in GitHub, and the sample gallery is the easiest way to actually find the relevant samples for you across Microsoft 365 Power Platform, Copilot prompts, and all of that stuff. There's so much stuff available for you to take advantage. There is a lot of URLs. There's actually one URL to remember, or 2. We are introducing the other one gradually as well. AKMS Community Home or Community MS will actually redirect you to the same location, which is the location where you can find all of these URLs, all of the assets, all of the details on community calls, and all of that from one centralized location. Now, you are in a community call, so you might be familiar that we do quite a few of them. We do have at least 2 community calls every single week. Tuesday, 8 a.m. Pacific time is this call, which is happening right now, which is weekly with Microsoft speakers. So this is the call where you actually hear about from product managers and designers and engineers and so on, presenters from Microsoft. Then on top of that, we have Power Platform monthly community call with community presenters, Office Admin community call with Microsoft presenters, and then our 7 a.m. Pacific time series, which is Microsoft 365 and Power Platform community, or Viva Connection SharePoint Framework call. And these 2 calls are happening every single Thursday, 7 a.m. Pacific time. So every single Thursday, it's either one of those calls. So making super easy, every single Thursday, 7 a.m. Pacific time, there is a one call happening. Now you can download recurrent invites from AKMS community calls, and you can always check the agendas from the Meetup service. Now, for a lot of those calls, we do welcome community demos. Easiest way to get scheduled is AKMS community request demo. Super easy form to fill in. What are you planning to demo? What is the title? What is your contact details? And we'll get back to you to get you to the schedule. And now, right now, we're starting to have a pretty long queue on the demos. So we are already booking at April. Right now, April, May even for some of the calls, but we definitely welcome you there. The earlier you can book, the earlier you actually get to the community call as well. So most likely we cannot get you there for next week or week after, but a bit later we can already get you scheduled. So please do submit if you want to show something. Doesn't have to be rocket science. Getting started stuff is always welcome, because that is the hardest thing for all of the new people, and the biggest audience is with the getting started stuff always. Now, talking about getting started, we do have a lot of Learn modules available in Microsoft Learn, in both Microsoft 365 Power Platform side, a lot of other modules available, all free for you to take advantage. On top of that, we kind of touched this already. We do have a lot of samples available to get started, to get familiar with Microsoft 365 and Power Platform. But rather than going to the GitHub and trying to find them behind of multiple folders and structures and repos and organizations, we have actually centralized them to a AKMS Community Samples location, which is a portal where all of this information is available for using easy search text box experience. So please take advantage of that one to get some inspiration, ideas. Check out that location subscription for additional samples. Every single day, there's something new over there as well. Now, when you find a sample, you might be wondering, oh, wait, it's in GitHub. I don't know what it is. How do I get started? Or maybe you want to contribute a sample which you created, and you're wondering, okay, how would I actually do that? That's why we have Sharing is Caring initiative, and directly live from LA Studios, here's David Warner to explain what this is all about.
Thank you, Vesa. Yes, live from LA, everybody. So we are one worldwide community, which means that we learn together. And that's what Sharing is Caring is all about. If you would like to contribute, or you would like to use some of the contributions of others, but that GitHub, that Hub of Gits, that GitHub Hubs, that labyrinth of confusion, we're going to demystify it. These sessions are live, they're hands-on, they're safe space. That means we don't record any of them, and you are free and welcome to join and collaborate with other members of the community. In fact, in less than a week, on March 10th, this coming Monday, we've got a samples contributor session. We're going to walk you through how to use that GitHub, and it's going to count as a contribution. And did I mention it's absolutely free? So come join other members of the community, get to know some new friends. ak.ms/sharing is caring. We welcome you, and we looking forward to getting Stephanie and Todd involved more as well. And we'll be putting in more sessions. April's and I are working on some other sessions like you see there on responsive Power Apps and component libraries and all kinds of other goodness. And once you do contribute, we want to recognize you for the amazing work that you're doing. And of course, that is where our recognition program is alive and well. We have got a number of new badges coming soon. Things like Prompt Pro, the Snippet Sorcerer, everybody loves that one. Powerful Devs just wrapped up. SharePoint Hackathon just got started. Repo Rescue, Modern Search. We've got some more fun ones I've been teasing out around Star Wars. Woo, the fork be with you. And we are excited. So we do need you to opt in, ak.ms/community/recognition, absolutely free. And just as a teaser, if I may, we're going to start recognizing folks from the community by name on these calls coming soon. We're kind of throwing back to what we did a long time ago, but we can now do with the recognition program. So keep an eye out for that. We're getting excited about that, and we're looking forward to it. That's it. Back to you in the Finland studios.
Excellent. Thank you, David from LA, Helsinki taking over. So really, really cool. Awesome to be part of this global community. Now, quick recap on all of the events we talked about already, or David mentioned. SharePoint Hackathon is right now ongoing. We did have a kickoff on this one yesterday, live stream, 1 hour live stream. The recording is already available in our YouTube channel. And we did have a lot of hundreds and hundreds of people actually joining on that one. Thank you for joining if you were one of them. Basic idea with SharePoint Hackathon is that everybody is welcome. If you're building out-of-the-box experiences, designs, cool-looking portals, all of that stuff, we are looking you to be part of the hackathon as well. And you can share your design or experience as part of the hackathon and get a badge. And you can also win as an individual category. So please check out more details on the other live streams, hackathon details, all of that at AKMS SharePoint Hackathon. Then kind of a follow-up on almost like a SharePoint Hackathon, because some of those people might be actually in Microsoft 365 Community Conference. We do have that one coming up on May 6th to 8th at Las Vegas. This is in MGM Grand. Awesome to be back also in Las Vegas. Last year we were in Orlando with M365 Conference. So I'll be there as well. So looking forward to catching up with many other people in the community. Now, following up on that one, we have the 3 conferences in a row happening at the same time, which is European Collaboration Summit, European AI Cloud Summit, European BizApp Summit. These are happening in the same location at Düsseldorf Conference Center. One community across all of the different topics, more than 3,000 attendees joining there at 26th to 28th of May. Again, I will be there. A lot of the community leads will be there as well to talk about the latest within these technologies. Looking forward on that as well. Now, on the other side of the pond, we have then Seattle, Atlanta, Dallas, TechCon 365 happening starting from June 23 to 27th. And then we have the Power Platform Community Conference coming up in October 28th to 13th, 2025, a great conference as well in Las Vegas in MGM Grand. And then as the final bigger conference, there's the ESPC Dublin coming up on 2025 in 1st to 4th of December. On top of this, there's a lot of individual smaller conferences and events happening and user group events happening all around the world. If you go to the communitydays.org, you can find all of the latest locations and things what are happening across Cameroon, US, Denmark, Leipzig, Germany, and so on. So a lot of opportunities on engaging together with community. Now, quick recap on the latest news from last week. Again, I think we're getting back to normal a bit on the news. The amount of news is flowing in. A lot of great stuff on Copilot, a lot of updates on Microsoft Teams as well. A lot of stuff, right? Also updates on Power Platform as well. And thank you, David, for sharing the links in the chat. All of the links for these news will be also in the recording of this video. So if you're wondering on how to get access on them as well, in the abstract of the recording. We also are always mentioning our Copilot prompt, great way of understanding how the Microsoft 365 Copilot or Copilot in general works and what we can do with that. And we do acknowledge the prompt of the week, which is this time coming from Nico Declare as a prompt on generating rough consolidated timesheet overview for a day. I actually tested this one earlier today, just out of curiosity how it actually worked, and he did an amazing job of actually listing all of the different things and meetings and messages which I had been sending as an email or in Teams, and also my meetings as well, and it did a really decent level of calculating on the total time spent for that day as well. So I do recommend testing out this one. Really good example of a great prompt within the Microsoft 365 Copilot. Now, before we then go to the actual starts of today and demos, we're right on schedule. This is good. Let's actually do a quick to get a mode picture. So let's actually enable the get mode. Let's see how this works today. Yeah, we can see Stephanie. We can see Brad there as well. So that's really good. Let me actually flip the scene so we're not always on the same scene. Let's go to the jungle. There we go, and let's then wait a while for that to refresh. It is pixel perfect today, so this is looking really, really good. Let's wait a few more minutes. People are popping up. We do have 50 seats in the room. We have now more than 216 people in the call. Every now and then, it doesn't pick up when you enable the camera, but let's wait a few more seconds because we have room. We do have seats in the room, or maybe the number of seats is lower now. I don't know if there's some sort of a problem with that. No, we are getting more people. That is really good. That is really good. Few more seconds. 10, 9, 8. Okay, maybe it's time to start the recording. So I will put the recording on and let's do some hand waving and we'll capture GIF animation out of that. Thank you for joining once again on the community. Awesome to have you here. Awesome to see familiar faces and new faces as well, because community is welcoming everybody here. Thank you for being here. Excellent. We'll grab a GIF animation out of that and share that in the social media after the call. Thank you. Cool. Let's then go to the actual stars of today. There we go. So we'll start with a demo with Mark Windle, unless it's Steve, because I did saw Steve there as well. And then we'll move into Fabian and Paolo. But Mark, Steve, who's going to do the demo today?
Yep. I'll kick off, Asa, and then I'll hand it over to Mark really quick.
Cool. Sounds good.
All right. So I am sharing live. You should see me.
Yes, we can see the screen. Take it away.
Excellent. All right. Thanks, Asa. All right, what we're going to talk about today is some of the new access controls that are coming to SharePoint Embedded, specifically on the permission side of things. So one of the new features that we're coming out with, in addition to the adaptive permissions that you currently have on containers. So remember, from a SharePoint Embedded perspective, containers are those things that hold documents in your application. Currently, the adaptive permissions work as if you are have access to the container, or if you don't have access to the container and want to grant someone specifically the ability to get into a folder, let's say, and see the documents that are in a folder, you can add, hence the adaptive permissions, add permissions to that folder. That person can see the documents that are in the folder. If you create folders underneath there, they will also be able to inherit those permissions and create them as well. Okay. One of the things that we are introducing is restrictive permissions. So kind of sort of think of inheritance and broken inheritance that you are familiar with on the SharePoint side of things. This does have the ability to break the permissions on an object for groups that are assigned to the object. We'll get into the details of that in just a second. But again, that is something that we are in the process of rolling out here shortly. All right, so what exactly are restrictive permissions? When restrictive permissions are set on an object, so think file, folder, you can determine how those permissions are retained. You'll see the JSON post over there on the right-hand side. And on that endpoint of create link, once you specified what container you want to target and what item, i.e. file or folder, then you can also determine what type of inherited permissions you want to use. True is going to strip everything out. Okay, so from the parent object, all of those are going to be stripped out. From the false value, permissions are removed from the item except for the default groups. Okay, so a little bit of flexibility there that you can use. This is the graph endpoint that you currently have in your environment today. Groups should be added and removed as necessary. So the permission endpoint can be used to remove or add those groups to the link application there. And also the permissions, again, if you create or if you break the inheritance on a particular folder, then any other objects created underneath there, i.e. children, are going to inherit that as well. So that newly created child object is going to be created as well. Okay. All right. So from a restricted permissions, again, some really cool stuff coming out there. Next thing I want to quickly transition to, and then we'll hand it over to Mark to give us a quick demo on some of these endpoints. SharePoint embedded SharePoint groups. So it is kind of what you think it is. We're creating and managing SharePoint groups in SharePoint embedded containers. So these are objects obviously not created in Entra ID. Control access to items as you normally would see fit. So add that to a container, add it to a folder, things like that. From a graph perspective, this is needing the graph, the group create and the directory read all for application permissions. And you'll see a sample of some of the endpoints here. Notice that new endpoint called SharePoint groups takes the title and the description of how you want to create that. Again, also some other actions there to manage the group, typical assign, add, remove, and so forth there. When you do execute that endpoint, it's going to return back the ID of the group that's created. That's your key to enabling that throughout most of the application and all of the objects that you want to grant that to. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Mark, and we're going to walk through some demos on how this works.
We cannot hear you, Mark. We can see the screen.
Hey there. Sorry about that.
No
I
worries.
was double muted. Yeah. Hey, everybody. Thanks, Steve. And yeah, so what we're looking at here is the Postman Visual Studio Code extension. If you haven't used it before, no big deal. It's just a way of exploring some of those APIs that Steve was showing us earlier. So I'm going to give you a really quick tour of those APIs so you can understand a little bit more detail of how you can use those new access control features that Steve mentioned. First, we're going to just kind of get a container here. I already have an access token. Today, I'm going to be using an app-only token, and that's because the group management capabilities require an app-only access token. So you have to be app-only in order to use that. I already have a container, so I just wanted to get it and show you what that looks like. So today, I'm going to use the beta endpoint. All of these new access controllers or access control features are brand new, so they're going to be on the graph beta endpoint. And right now I'm just getting a container. So this isn't a new API, but I'm just showing you the container that I have. And I'm going to scroll down a little bit, and we're going to look at kind of just this permissions object. And so before the new features that we're talking about and announcing today, we already had this permission construct on a container, which was these roles. And so you could assign users or groups to the built-in permission roles that exist on these file storage containers. So there's reader, writer, owner, and manager. And that's really handy. And that was kind of following an additive permission model where if I add somebody as a reader on the container, they're going to be able to read all of the files on that container no matter what. And then similarly, if I have groups assigned to that as well. So that's good. Everything is going to cascade. The thing we're announcing today is a couple of new features. Definitely a lot of customer interest in these features. So if you're working with SharePoint Embedded, I encourage you to check this stuff out. on your own because these are available on beta now. But specifically, now we can break inheritance and we can create groups within the file storage container to be able to manage permissions. So right now I only have one owner here. So myself, I've added myself as an owner. I'm going to just go ahead and create a couple of folders in here. So I'm going to create a parent folder right at the root of this container. And then underneath that, I'm going to make a child folder in that parent. So you can see these are just basic folders. So nothing new here. And this child folder is going to be within that parent. So just creating some structure that we can apply some permissions on. Okay, now into the new APIs. So I'm going to list the SharePoint groups that exist within this file storage container. So I'm going to send that, and we don't have any right now. So you can see, like, I don't have any groups in here. But the new capability that we're offering is the ability to create groups within a container, a SharePoint group within a container, and you can manage the members of that. And so when I do that, at a minimum, I have to provide a title to that. So I'm just pulling that from my environment. And it can have a description as well, but you at least need a title. And so when I do that, we now have a SharePoint group within this file storage container. So it belongs to that container. I can't use it across other containers. But what it lets me do is kind of be more precise with some of the permissions I have in here, and be able to assign those groups or be able to add that group permission to different folders within this container. So ultimately, all of these new access control features give you a lot more granularity and control to be able to, take advantage of effectively what has been the rich permission capabilities within SharePoint. We're bringing a lot of that capability to SharePoint Embedded. So I'm going to add a member to this group. And in here, in this tenant, I've got Megan Bowen. So if you've used the development tenants, you've seen these users before. So I'm going to add Megan Bowen to be a member of this new group that I made. So that's what the API looks like. Great. So Megan's now a member of that group. And I can go now and look at the group members, which not surprisingly should just list Megan. Great. All right. And now what I want to do is to be able to take that group that we've made and add it, give that group permissions on that parent folder. And so I'm going to give them either write or read permissions. Today I'm going to give them write permissions. And this is how I do it. So it's a site group. Instead of, this granted to v2 objects, we pass the site group, the group ID that I just made, and the name of the group. All right, there we go. So my group is now a member, is able to write on that parent folder. And when I do that, we can see that we have that role assignment there. So there's that group that we made. And now they can write to content within that folder. Awesome. And then within this child folder, we can go look at the permissions there. All right, so there we go. And then the last thing I'm going to show you today, we've got a quick demo, is just how you can break inheritance. So this is just what the API looks like. And then as Steve mentioned in the slide, like this allows you to be able to effectively control the permissions. And so when I do this, which I'm going to now call this with this retain inherit permissions true. When I do this, what that's going to do is break inheritance on that child folder. And now what I can do is, as I change the permissions on that parent folder, those the permissions on this child folder will be broken, effectively meaning I can manage it independently of the ancestors or of the parent folder. So these are the new access control features within SharePoint and beta and those APIs, and shows you how you can use them. So these are available on beta now, so you can go check them out. And you should give you a lot more control of how you can manage access for your custom applications that are built on SharePoint Embedded. That's it for me.
Excellent. I think we're then good, unless Steve has any slides. No, I can see the clapping as well. Excellent. Thank you, Mark. Thanks, Steve. Really, really cool. So awesome updates, new capabilities coming up and rolling out all the time for SharePoint Embedded. It's cool to see the continuous improvements for customers and partners on it as well. So thank you for that. Fabian, next, let's jump into talking about CAPS.
Exactly. Let me go ahead and share this desktop. I'm not going to try to do PowerPoint Live like I did last week. Presenter mode, slideshow, and not. Actually, I'll tell you what. Can you can see my screen? Yes.
Yep, we can see the screen.
So last week when we spoke, and thank you again for the opportunity to
Fabian, for the recording, it would be much better if you're in a full screen.
I am. I'm gonna get there.
But as an individual, you do video, it works better. But again, so
no, I'm gonna get to that. I just wanted to show people where we came from. Yeah. Cool. So last week when we spoke, we covered the basics of Copilot agent plugins and how we got there. We're actually going to start off further a little bit further down now and actually going to advanced consideration. So with that, let me go ahead and make it into presenter mode and start on this screen right here. And David and I were actually talking backstage, and I was saying that if we do have a video, a link to show for what we covered last week, that'll be helpful. I'll have some links for us when I finish my little part of the conversation here today. But today's largely just a communicative. It's going to be me talking to you about what I'm seeing, signals that I've been getting back, the reason why we're doing this, and why you also would be interested in this. But great place to start is how this, the big picture of how this works. And the idea, again, if you weren't here last week or if you have not seen the video, is that a developer using VS Code would be able to, for now, use some hand-rolled plugins that we have created for them in order to communicate with Microsoft 365 data using natural language. And so far, we've actually rolled out email, the ability to send and receive email. Today, we actually, actually it's yesterday, technically. Yesterday, we actually merged into the main branch the ability now to write calendar. Before we could only read. So now you can actually write an event and actually read events from a person's calendar using natural language. Contacts, your ability to read contacts. Think of that analogous to if you already have a user entity inside other system of records, Azure being one of, Entra being one of them, or also any other SaaS application. You may actually want to call the person's name rather than providing email address. So context is how we're actually doing that here. And then soon we'll be having another API, which I just can't mention here today, plus files, the ability to read and write files. And the way that we have done that right now is by using an open source tool called Kyoto in order to do that, but we are moving towards doing that in TypeSpec. And the reason why is because TypeScript will allow us to create a more lighter weight plugin and more prescriptive, so you don't have to massage it that much. And why you would want to massage it as well is because depending on your use case and your story, and also the model that you choose, your mileage could vary in terms of just the validity and accuracy of the responses that you get. But all of that goes into a semantic kernel plugin, which is we're using an extension method in semantic kernel in order to do that allows you to communicate with all of these services down here, and that surfaces up as an application or a custom engine agent that you can actually enter into a response with. So that's my framing. So the advanced consideration that we're going to talk about here today is really around, how does this tie into the agent framework and when you'd want to use this. And the best place to start is just to think about how we, Microsoft, I've been talking about agents, right? The agent paradigm or the agent framework has at its very lowest layer the foundational models that are there that everyone builds on top of. And then we at Microsoft, we also have our own orchestrator that that sits on top of those foundational models, and it interacts with knowledge that we provide through instructions and grounding, skills that are native out of the box, and also later on, with some type of autonomy, and all of that service up inside a display layer. That the one canvas can be Teams, the other canvas can be BizChat, and so on and so forth. The way that works in a declarative agent, again, it's built upon the foundational models that we, that we have inside Azure. The orchestrator is managed by Microsoft, so there's not much that you can do about it in terms of manipulating that. And the user experience is also, controlled by Microsoft. And what you can bring as a declarative agent in terms of knowledge is your own instructions and your own grounding. By adding that knowledge into the manifest. And in terms of skills, you can leverage, what traditionally we'll call plugins in order to reach it outside to get, just in time actions and capabilities that are there. So within the declarative agent framework, you can see there are some stuff that Microsoft manages that you don't necessarily have control over, but there are some things where you do have control over, as you can see in the dotted or the and trail line. However, you take that a step further. Let me advance a little bit. There we go. Take it a step further. When you think about custom engine agents, and in this light with semantic kernel, what we're providing, and what we unlock using CAPS is the ability for full control. So not only can you bring your own foundational models, but you can bring your own finely tuned model, your own small language model. You have full control over the orchestrator. You have the ability to bring your own RAI, your own skills, which you could have done with a DA as well, but really unlock all of your skills. And also your own knowledge and instructions. And why is this important more than the other way that you can do it? Is because you could be looking at knowledge and instructions that may span multiple different data sources. So you may have some stuff inside a blob storage, like images. You may have stuff in table storage, like raw data. You may have stuff inside another SaaS application or your own internal API, and you may even want to aggregate all of that for the LLM to reason over rather than doing one at a time, depending on your user story. And that is also where the orchestrator and having full control over that would come into play. So, let's break this down one by one, and I'll tell you what I've been hearing from customers and the reason why this may either align to you as well or is something to consider. So customers have told us that they want more control over their models, and the way they've described this is a few ways, but the ones that resonate and are top of mind is not necessarily around the foundational models themselves or the finely tuned models, but more so the embedding model. As people have different data in different locations, the way that they create the chunks by which, if they're doing a RAG pattern, the ability to have the coastline similarity and nearest neighbor is by defining chunks. So if you have a long, let's say a long PDF document, how you chunk that will also determine the effectiveness of how the prompt can reason over it. So you may be using a different embedding algorithm. So that's your own model. And you don't necessarily control that when you are using our system in terms of ingesting your own knowledge and then having our prompts and our orchestrator reason over it. It's basically be using our embedding model, our algorithms. So that's one reason why people would want to do that. And the way that could take shape and the way that we actually leverage this inside CAPS is that we afford you the ability to choose also between Azure OpenAI, or, like me sometimes using Ollama. And you can see an example down at the bottom here as well, where you can actually see me, just testing out. And this may be one of the reasons why I may want to use something like a CAPS as well. You know that your mileage could vary. You also want to reduce your own cost. And in fact, what you may find is that you may want to discretely use maybe a small language model for certain activities, and then a large language model for other activities, either for a cost saving or for performance benefits. I'll tell you right now that the and this is before I actually use 5.4, the 5.4 model that I used recently for math and computational stuff, it far goes way faster than what Llama is able to do. But now I've been playing around with DeepSeek, with Llama, with Llama Boat Vision, and also Llama in Instruct. And you may want to do that just to test things out. And even in something that I'm actually working on this week for FHL, I actually have something where it's working as an Azure function, and Azure function does the outside benefit, and then I actually have an Azure function running locally on my machine that looks inside Azure Blob Storage or something, and then pulls it down, and then my local model starts to reason over it. But having full control over your model gives you that flexibility. And as I mentioned before, you may also want something where you may have some different source of records. In this instance here, you can see this example that I created that's using Microsoft Graph and using the changelog. We actually are pulling stuff directly from a website, and we want to have full control over how we reason over that. We only want the history, only the user input, and also leverage certain plugins as well. Or if, as I mentioned before, you may have something in a blob container, and you may have things in like a receipt or a photos and a feedback and stuff like that, and you want to aggregate that data inside there. So when you have different sources of records and you need to do your own plugins or your own aggregation, you may want to leverage something like a custom agent plugin, custom agent agent, and leverage something like CAPS in order to do that. Moreover, customers have told us that they want to leverage their own native APIs and their native skills. Unless you're starting this company day one and it's brand spanking new, obviously you may have your own APIs that are already out there already, and you may want to just leverage that either for faster time to market or better code reuse, or in this case, you may have CAPS where we've hand rolled something for you, and you want to just start using that so you can get to market quicker. So here's an example how you may have your own plugins and you want to bring that directory in, or you may want to reference it inside your code. Leveraging CAPS, leveraging the semantic kernel gives you the ability to do that. And if you have an open API specification, this is 10 times easier. When you think about this is something to a lesser extent, and I would say it's very niche, because whenever I talk to people about is RAI important, usually in a certain community, like first responders, military, law enforcement, those people usually say yes because of the nature of what they're doing. Leveraging our RAI may be a little bit too prescriptive, because you're talking about stuff that may get flagged, whether it's patient information, it's gruesome in nature, it talks about things that are maybe possibly sensitive in terms of just what society would deem normal, and the RAI may flag that for whatever reason. But you leveraging CAPS, leveraging semantic kernel, have full control over that as well. Customers may also want, and this by far, the orchestrator, this is the biggest one that I've seen in terms of what customers want to see. They may not necessarily want to use our orchestrator, and you can bring LangChain here as well. I know that LangChains are very popular. LangChain and LangGraph. Semantic kernel obviously is what we're using predominantly because you can have .NET support, you have Python support as well, and Java support. But bring your own orchestrator is what we actually say as well in this model. And one of the reasons why you may want to do that, using this example that I've actually built using CAPS, is the ability to tell it how you want it to orchestrate. I only want you to choose from this participants if I'm using an agentic framework to do this. Only use the agent, calendar agent, the contact agent, the legal secretary agent, the chief of staff agent. And also, if you see these items inside the prompt, leverage this person, and the last person out the door needs to be this. And then you may also want to create your own termination strategy, when to tell it when to stop and stuff like that. Otherwise, keep trying. So this, when you're using CAPS, when you're using semantic kernel, and by the way, this is a semantic kernel example, where you can actually see we're defining the prompt function strategy, and for the selection of which agent to use and how to terminate, you get to control that as well. And finally, there may be something as branding. You already built your mobile application, you already built your website, you already built your intranet or your internet, and you may want to leverage that. So again, this is my FHL Fix Hack Learn demo that I'm working on this week. It's not quite there yet, but basically it has its own branding, which is the reason why this picture is here. So I'm building a little tool that actually leverages CAPS right now, and it gets information. You may have seen on LinkedIn, I've been playing around with this brewery stuff that I've been building. This actually is something I'm building out here for FHL as well. But you can see how leveraging its own branding, you can actually have the LLM be a part of that experience rather than doing it that way. I know I'm coming up on time, but I really would, Vesta, tell me I do have time this week. I know last week I didn't have time. If you do have questions, I would love if you can either put them in chat. But that's basically what I have. what I can also share with you is some comms. If you did not see last week session, then I do have for you some homework, like what's her name? Donna Starker would say, I have homework for you to watch videos or get caught up in terms of some of the onboarding, in terms of the docs that we have, the blogs that we have out there. And, let me know, I think everyone here knows how to contact me, either on email or on LinkedIn, or a lot of you have my phone numbers. Reach out to me, let me know if CAPS, is something that's right for you, like you could say in those commercials. And I'd love to hear your scenarios as well. Vincent, how much time do I have, if any?
I think it's better to have the discussions in the chat because anyway, it gets complicated and there's 250 people in a call, so it gets always complicated on that. But thank you, Fabian. Really, really cool. Good updates on the advanced scenarios. Thank you also sharing additional links and assets in the chat as well. Awesome stuff. And right on schedule, Paolo, take it away.
Yeah. Thank you, Vesa. And yes, today we are going to talk about how we can create agents with Microsoft Copilot Studio. So first of all, I want to share with you that the demo I'm going to share with you right now is part of a set of labs that we have in the Copilot Developer Camp, which is a workshop that we can deliver and a training that you can use to learn about how to extend Microsoft 365 Copilot. The target are both makers and professional developers, and there are multiple pathways that you can follow to learn how to extend Copilot based on your needs and your background. So just to give you an idea, these are the paths that we provide, and whether you are a maker or a coder or maybe both, because most of us are both coder and makers, you can choose your right path. So if you want to be a maker, maybe you want to be a maker as an end user using Copilot Studio Agent Builder, or maybe you want to target not only Microsoft 365 Copilot, but also Teams and other channels, and you want to create agents with the Microsoft Copilot Studio. And as such, you will go for the MCS path, or maybe you want to extend SharePoint Online still with a maker approach, creating SharePoint agents. On the other side, if you want to be a it really depends on how you want to implement your extension for Copilot. If you want to rely on the native model provided by Microsoft 365 Copilot, you will go for the extend path and you will create a declarative agent. If you want to use your own model and all the stuff that Fabian was talking about, you will go for the custom engine agent and for the path B. Today, we are going to see a lab and a demo which is related to the Copilot Studio series of labs. This is the link in case you want to dig into the Copilot Dev Camp and follow all of the learning path. And there is something which is upcoming. We are actually working on it. We are working on a challenge for all of you, for the whole community, so that you can learn. And while you learn, you can also earn badges and have community recognition for what you do. So be ready to start completing every single pathway so that you will become an expert in extending Microsoft 365 Copilot. And if you will complete one of the paths, you will get a blue belt. You know, I used to be a judo guy when I was young, many, many years ago. So that's why we are using this metaphor. So blue belt if you complete one of the paths, black belt if you complete all of the paths, and red belt, you will become a sensei if you will complete all of the path, and you will publish a community samples on the sample gallery. So again, as I said, working on it, stay tuned, and hopefully soon we will make it possible for you to claim your badges. And of course, you need to go through the path. And so now let's dig into the demo and let's see how we can create an agent with Copilot Studio. So first of all, let me switch here. And well, in order to properly work with Copilot Studio, especially if you are in a developer environment, I would suggest you and advise you to first of all go to the Power Platform Admin Center in order to being able to come here and to manage your Power Platform ecosystem and to create an environment, which is what I'm going you to advise to do. You will need to be an admin, and if not, you will need to ask to one one of your colleagues who has to be an admin of the Power Platform. But if you are in a developer tenant, you should be able to do that by yourself. You come here, you create a new environment. You create an environment which could be, for example, an environment to run as a developer your solutions. And by creating an environment, all of the labs, all of the stuff that you will do will be isolated in that specific environment so that you can freely play with it without, let me say, not without compromising any other stuff that you have in your company. But again, if you are in a developer tenant, you should be safe no matter what. Here, for example, I have a Copilot DevCamp environment that I already created in my tenant. And what I want to show you today is how to create an agent to work with a set of resumes that I'm storing in a SharePoint Online document library as a set of PDF documents. And as you can see right here, those PDF documents are stored and written in different languages and are about potential candidates with specific skills, languages, and professional experience. All of them have, all of the files have information about one of the candidates that we need to evaluate. And I want to show you how you can create an agent with Copilot Studio, which will help HR folks to select the right candidates based on their resume. And as you can see, we can interact with the agent, providing prompts like, for example, suggest me a candidate who is suitable for Spanish speaking and who has at least 2 years of experience with .NET. So the agent will go to my knowledge base, my set of PDF resumes, and extract the information about the candidates that are matching my criteria. The same could happen for different criteria, like, for example, I want to have senior developers who can speak Japanese and have at least 7 years of experience. And here again, we can see the output of the agent using a nice table to have an ordered output of the information I'm looking for. How can we do that using Copilot Studio? Well, luckily, that's quite easy. So you open Copilot Studio, so you go to copilotstudio.microsoft.com, and if you haven't used it before, you will have to activate eventually a trial license if you don't have a license on your tenant, or in the Copilot DevCamp, you will find in the make path additional information about how you can do the setup and what kind of licenses you need and stuff like that. So I don't want to dig into that topic right now, but you can go to the Copilot Camp and you can see what's needed in order to being able to play with Copilot Studio in your tenant. So now here, of course, I already have my agent created, but let's say that I want to create it from scratch, and then we will go back to the one that I already created later on. So you click on the Create button, and you choose to create a new agent, or maybe you want to start from an already existing template. So once you are done with that, you can either use a descriptive approach, so you simply describe what you're looking for, and using natural language processing, Copilot Studio will create the agent for you, or you can skip to the configuration like I've done right now, and you can provide the information about your agent. So for example, here I can say that I want to create the candidate selector agent. I can provide a description like, for example, an agent helping HR people to find the best candidate for a specific role. And then I can provide what is called here instruction, but it is actually what we usually define as the system prompt. So here I declare that you are an agent helping the HR department to find the right candidate for a specific role based on a set resume written in multiple languages. Always provide reference to the resume documents, use professional tone, and always provide a list of items using tables. And in fact, as you have seen before, the output was based on tables. And you like using emojis where appropriate. And in fact, while interacting with the agent right here, I was able to see emojis in the output. Then, if I'm targeting, and we will cover that later in this demo, if you are targeting Microsoft 365 Copilot, and as such, you want to get this agent running in the UI of Microsoft 365 Copilot with chat, then you will be also able to define a set of starter prompts that will be provided to the users to help them interact with your agent. And for sure, you will need a knowledge base, which is what we have in this document library library right here. So let's say that I want to add a knowledge base. Now, when you create a knowledge base, you can choose between multiple options. You can have a public set of public websites, SharePoint sites, or document libraries. You can even rely on Dataverse tables or additional data sources available through the Power Platform. Right now, I'm going to use a SharePoint data source. Let me browse for the list of resumes that I have. And if I'm lucky enough, yes, it is the top one because it's the one that I used recently. So here is my library with all of the resumes. I can confirm my selection. I should provide a meaningful description for my data source in order to help the generative AI of Copilot Studio to better understand when I'm looking for content which is available through this knowledge base that I'm defining. So here I say this is a library with resumes of candidates written in multiple languages. Could be even better, but I'm a developer. I don't always have a good fantasy. And now I have defined the layout of my agent. Of course, you can also play with the icon of the agent and stuff like that. Let's create it. Now, Microsoft Copilot Studio is creating the agent for us, and soon we will see the interface of Copilot Studio to manage additional settings for this agent. It will take a while to be ready, and you can see that right here the publish button is grayed out because it is still working on it and preparing the agent to be ready. But while it is working on it, we can already see that this agent is based on a description and on a set of instructions that we defined. We can eventually enable generative orchestration to use a natural language to provide inputs to the agent and let the agent using GenAI to better understand what we are looking for, what is the knowledge base we are looking for, or what are the actions that we are looking for and that we want to execute. We have the knowledge base section where we can define all of the knowledge sources. So right now we have SharePoint, the one we defined, but again, we can add additional data sources right here using this add knowledge button. We can eventually turn off the general knowledge that the AI will rely on by default. And if you just want to have your agent fully focused on your content, you can disable this option. And the only knowledge base that the agent will rely on will be the one that you define right here. We can define actions and triggers, topics that we are going to cover in the upcoming weeks, because as Vesa said, this is one of a series of episodes that we are going to have. As well as we can define topics to configure interactions with the user based on single turn or multi-turn interactions. And again, we will cover this topic in one of the upcoming demos. Once you are ready with your agent, you can publish the agent. Publishing the agent will store the settings and the information about the agent into the catalog of the agents that we have, but will not make it actually available in the target environment. Actually, to make it available, you need to choose one of the channels that Copilot Studio makes available for you. So you should go to the channels tab, and from here you can choose where you want to consume or to make your agent available. And for example, if you want to use it on Teams, as I was doing before right here in this demo, well, you can choose the Teams plus Microsoft 365 option, which is something really new that was introduced, I think, a couple of days ago, no more than that. And it used to be Teams. Now it is Teams plus Microsoft 365. Because in fact, right now, if you click on this channel, you can enable the Teams channel and make your agent available as a kind of a bot in Teams. Of course, a smarter bot because it will rely on AI and not just on a predefined interaction path. But you can also, with this new capability plus Microsoft 365, you can also make the agent available in Microsoft 365 Copilot. So the same agent that you are creating right here, targeting Teams, it will also target the Microsoft 365 Copilot chat, which is really interesting because you create the agent once and you can use it in multiple different scenarios. And that's what I've done here for our candidate selector in a different tenant because it takes a while to do the publishing and the activation of a channel. So right here in my tenant, which is just another tenant almost like the previous one, I have my candidate selector, which is the agent that I was showing you before. And as you can see, it is configured exactly like the one that I showed you before in action, and then that we built together. We still have the same kind of data sources, but I also defined a set of starter prompts, like list the candidates who are C# developers, list the candidates who are SQL and T-SQL expert, and so on and so forth. And of course, you can edit these starter prompts by clicking on the pencil and saving all of your changes. This agent, as I was telling you, has been made available through the Teams plus Microsoft 365 channel, including the Microsoft 365 Copilot option, and I published this agent in this tenant. And as such, when I come to Copilot, I can find this agent in the list of declarative agents that I have right here, those that I can create, for example, with the Agent Builder, or with Teams Toolkit creating a declarative agent, or even using Copilot Studio, the old way, creating agents just targeting Microsoft 365 Copilot. But now this agent targets both Teams and Copilot at once. And here I can see I have my starter prompts, so I can start looking for candidates who are C# developers, for example. And it should give me back the list of candidates who have C# in their resume as a skill that they have. Takes a while, but we should be able to see the output. And here we are. We have 3 developers skilled with C# expertise. And we can then play again with the prompt that I used before in the other tenant to get a list of candidates who are speaking Spanish and who have at least 2 years of experience in .NET. Let's see what we get. And again, as before, we got emojis, we got data stored or presented in tables because that's what I asked for in my system prompt. And this is really powerful because using Copilot Studio, you can easily make your custom agents available inside the UI of Copilot as well as inside the UI of Teams right here. And it is up to you to choose what channels you want to target. And of course, using Copilot Studio, as I was telling you before, you can target Teams and Microsoft 365, but you can also target many more channels so that, for example, you could host the same agent, for example, in a website and make it available for the public web to customers of your company. And you can still use the same design logic. You can still build the agent the same way. The only difference will be that you will need to take care of the security of the agent in a different way. And in fact, by default, if you click on settings in a agent built with or made with Copilot Studio, in the security section, you have by default the authentication of type authenticate with Microsoft, which is the default one. And since we published this agent in Teams and in Microsoft 365 Copilot, that's the only choice we have. But for a new agent that you are building from scratch, you can choose to have different authentication options, and maybe you want to make it available on multiple channels and not only on Teams and Microsoft 365 Copilot Chat. So plenty of options. And as I said, this is the starting point to build agents. There will be upcoming episodes in the upcoming weeks where you will learn how to play with actions, how to play with topics and with triggers. And little by little, we will dig into all of the options you have to build really powerful agents with Microsoft Copilot Studio. I think that's all for me too, Vesa. So thank you, everyone, and back to you.
Excellent. Thank you, Paolo, on that one. Really cool job and a great demo, by the way. And like Bob was saying already and shared in the chat, those training material as an example material does exist as part of the Copilot camp. So you can actually build exactly the same demo, so which is great. So there's a demo material to get started and understand how all of this actually works. So thank you, Paolo, for that one. Now, thank you, Steve. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Fabian. Thank you, Paolo. Really, really cool demos today. Really busy goal, and we're right on schedule, but we will close on time, which is great. Now, next week, we have Sheila Patankar or some of the people from her team sharing updates on Power Platform connector side of the house. We'll have also Bob German talking about creating the first declarative agent for Microsoft 365 Copilot. This is an area where we have had quite a few demos in the past, but again, these things do evolve quite a lot, so we want to keep up to date on the demo videos, and that's part of the Copilot Camp training package as well. And then Rama is here also to talk about the ability to manage your agents across Power Platform environment. So super important thing to consider. You can have multiple environments of those in Power Platform, and what does that mean? How do you actually manage them? And that's the last topic of the week, next week, and 11th of March. In the meanwhile, feel free to take advantage of our Discord server and AKMS Community Discord, one way of engaging with the community if you are in the Discord in general and using that one. Great option to hang with the community as well. We are always looking for feedback within these calls, so please, if you have a few minutes of time, give us feedback. Free text feedback is always super important, so we're able to keep on doing these calls also in the future. But for now, thank you for this one. The recording will be available at Microsoft Community Learning YouTube channel within 24 hours, typically much faster than that, but 24 hours does give us some flexibility on that. We will use then LinkedIn and Blue Sky and Twitter to announce whenever the recording is available. Next call on March 11th, and there are other calls happening this week as well. So please do check out AKMS Community Calls for more details on all of the different options if you're interested on specific areas within Microsoft 365 or Power Platform. But thank you everybody for joining today. Have a great rest of the week. Let's stay in touch. Thanks everybody, and huge thanks for the speakers one more time. Cheers. Bye-bye.